If I'd listened to my gut, I never would have left the apartment that morning. The sirens had started early, before sunrise. By the time I sat up in bed, blinking at my cracked phone screen, there were 3 missed texts from Mom. One from my cousin Marcus in Florida, and a weird alert from the city. Emergency, stay away from the supermarket. I thought it was a joke, some glitch, because nobody tells you not to go buy groceries, not in America. But my cupboards were empty and my stomach was louder than the sirens. So I got dressed and left, trying to believe everything was fine. The walk to ShopRite was all wrong. Nobody was talking. Some people hurried, heads down, clutching bags to their chests like they were running from the rain. Only the sky was clear, and the air had that dry, almost electrical smell, like just before a thunderstorm. At the corner, a military van was parked, engine running, some soldier-looking guys inside. One had his head against the window, eyes shut, mouth open. I almost laughed, thought, damn, even soldiers get tired of waiting for something to happen in Jersey. But there was a weird streak of red on the glass by his ear. It could have been ketchup. I kept telling myself it was ketchup. Inside the supermarket, the lights were on, but the music was off, which was creepy. The place was packed, but dead quiet. People snatched up cans, jars, baby formula, moving fast but never looking at each other. A woman in pajamas sneezed so hard she dropped her basket. Everyone flinched like she'd fired a gun. I saw a little kid, maybe 6, standing by the freezer aisle, face pale, biting his fist. No one helped him. I grabbed a loaf of bread, peanut butter, tuna, random things. Something about the silence pressed on me, made my skin itch. I wanted to get out. My phone vibrated in my pocket, but the screen was black when I checked. Battery was at 40%, so that didn't make sense. I made it to checkout. The cashier was a dude I recognized from high school, Trent. He looked different. Hair greasy, eyes red, but I tried to be normal. "Hey man, wild day, huh?" He didn't say anything, just beat my stuff, hands shaking. I saw a cut on his wrist. It was fresh. I almost asked, but he looked at me with such emptiness I just took my bag and left, heart pounding. Outside, the air felt thicker. Didn't realize how loud the wind was until then. On the walk home, my phone buzzed again. Another alert, but now the screen wouldn't unlock. I pressed the power button. Nothing. A group of people was standing on the corner by the military van now, arguing in low voices. One guy was yelling into a phone, saying, "Put her on, just put her on," like he could make someone appear through pure rage. A woman next to him was crying, not loud but constant, like she didn't care who saw. By the time I reached my building, there was blood on the front steps. Not a lot, but not nothing. I walked around it, keys tight in my fist. Upstairs, I heard coughing through the walls. Hard, wet coughing, echoing down the hall from Mrs. Wilkes's place. She was ancient, lived alone, always baking cookies for the building. The smell of burnt sugar mixed with something metallic was everywhere. I dumped my groceries on the counter and checked my phone again. Still dead. I tried plugging it in, but the charger was suddenly useless. No charging light, no vibration. I turned on the TV, hoping for answers. Nothing but static. Switched to the radio, the emergency beep repeating, cutting through every frequency, and a robotic voice. "This is a message from the supermarket. Stay away from the supermarket. Stay away from the supermarket. Stay away." It lose it. I tried texting my mom from my laptop. No service. I called Marcus, straight to voicemail. I looked out my window and saw a guy in a brown jacket stumbling down the street, hands out like he was feeling for something invisible. He stopped in the middle of the crosswalk and threw up, just right there in the road. A car swerved around him and kept going. Nobody stopped. I started to get this feeling like I was underwater and the surface was moving further away. I locked the door, slid the chain in place, and grabbed the baseball bat from under my bed. It felt dumb, but better than nothing. I texted my friend Katie, "You okay? Don't go out." The message hung there, unsent. All I could do was wait. I thought about turning off the lights, hiding in the bathroom, but I needed to see what was happening outside. I kept watch through the blinds as the sun went down. The military van drove away, finally. Sirens faded. But the coughing, the crying, the emergency beep, they stayed. I was alone, with only the sound of my heart and the radio's warning, looping and looping and looping. And that's when I saw, through the darkness, a shape at the door to the supermarket across the street. Something was banging from inside, not trying to get in, but trying to get out. There's a moment when you realize the world isn't coming back. For me, it was when I heard the screaming coming from the supermarket just before sunrise, echoing down the block, sharp enough to wake the dead. I hadn't slept. I'd spent the whole night at my window, watching shapes move behind the glass across the street, the doors rattling, shadows sliding along the aisles inside, and that horrible emergency beep still filling the airwaves. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop. At some point, someone, I think it was Mr. Hahn from 3B, ran out of the supermarket with a bloody towel pressed to his neck. He stumbled down the sidewalk, eyes wide and lost, like he was blind. Nobody helped. I didn't move. I just stood there, sweating, gripping my phone like it would magically fix everything if I held it tight enough. It didn't. The battery was dead. I felt like I was the only one left in the world. Then the apartment intercom buzzed. It was loud in the silence, made me jump and nearly drop my useless phone. I let it buzz until it stopped. Then it buzzed again, more desperate. I crept to the hallway, heart in my throat, and called out, "Who is it?" The only answer was coughing, rough and wet and much too close. I looked through the peephole and saw Mrs. Wilkes, slumped against the wall, her housecoat stained, hands shaking. She looked at me with pleading eyes, then slid down to the floor, her head banging the door so hard I flinched. I wanted to help her, I really did, but something was wrong with her. Her eyes weren't right. They were milky, unfocused, but she stared at me through the peephole like she could see right into my room. I stayed quiet. I didn't open the door. After a while, the buzzing stopped. Silence. I peered through the peephole and saw her dragging herself down the hall toward the stairs, leaving a streak of something dark on the floor. That was when the power flickered out. Just like that. The hum of the fridge died. The TV was just a black mirror. The emergency beep disappeared. I think that was the worst part. Suddenly, nothing but my own breath and the soft noises from the street, and every sound felt huge. I looked outside again. The supermarket doors had been busted open, glass scattered across the sidewalk. Something was moving inside, fast and hunched, way too fast to be normal. I saw what looked like 3 people run out into the street, one chasing the other 2, blood on all of them. The one being chased fell, and the other one, the one covered in more blood than clothes, just dropped on top of him, tearing at his neck with teeth and hands. The third ran screaming, disappearing between parked cars. I couldn't breathe. I started shaking, knees pressed to my chest, praying this was just some sick dream. But I heard it, voices in the hallway, someone pounding on doors, begging to be let in. "Help me, please, please," over and over, fading down the hall. A gunshot somewhere in the building. The whole world spun. I realized then that nobody was coming to help us. There would be no rescue. The cops weren't answering. My friends weren't answering. My mom, God, I didn't even know if she was alive. I crawled around my apartment, shoving my old dresser in front of the door, taping towels to the windows, checking the locks twice, 3 times. My hands shook so bad I almost dropped the bat. At some point, someone knocked on the door again, softer this time. "It's Katie," the voice whispered. Open up. I froze. It sounded like her, but when I looked through the peephole, all I could see was her hair. Long, black, messy. She kept her head down, voice trembling. Please, let me in. I'm okay. I'm not like them. I wanted to believe her. I really did. Katie was my best friend. We'd grown up together, cut class together, watched zombie movies, and laughed at how stupid people acted in them. Now I was one of those people. Frozen, terrified. I started to unlock the door, but then I saw the blood dripping from her sleeve, the way her fingers twitched, clawing at the wood. She looked up, and her eyes were just like Mrs. Wilkes's. Cloudy, hungry, but somehow sad. I backed away. I had to. I'm sorry, I whispered. I can't. She started banging, screaming, then laughing. A horrible, high-pitched giggle that didn't sound like her at all. I stayed there, shaking, as the building fell quiet again. When I finally looked out the window, the street was empty, except for bodies, sprawled and twisted, all facing the supermarket, like they'd crawled toward it with their last breath. The doors swung open and shut in the wind, creaking like an old ship. I knew it then, down in my bones. This wasn't just an infection. It was something else. Something that made people want, need, to get to the supermarket. And if you went in, you didn't come out the same. If you came out at all. So I sat on the floor with the bat, listening, waiting. I watched as the sun came up, painting everything gold and red, and I realized the world had changed forever. There was no going back, no safety, no hope, just the thin fraying line between me and whatever was out there, waiting to break through. Chapter 3. The Thin Line. I don't know how long I sat there. Hours, maybe. Long enough for the sun to start sliding back down the sky, shadows stretching across the street like black fingers. My stomach growled, but I didn't dare move. I kept hearing footsteps in the hallway, sometimes running, sometimes slow, dragging. Sometimes I heard someone calling for help, but I didn't open the door. I couldn't. I wasn't even sure if they were still people. Then, as night fell, the alarm started again, different this time, not from phones or TVs, but out on the street. Loudspeakers on police cars driving up and down, the message barely understandable. Do not leave your homes. Do not approach the supermarket. Do not trust anyone showing signs of why. The speakers would cut off, replaced by screams, by crashing sounds, by silence. I looked out the window and saw more people in the street, wandering, some crawling, some sprinting for no reason I could understand. They all looked wrong. Around midnight, the fire alarm in the building started blaring. Someone must have pulled it. Smoke drifted under my door. I had to decide, burn or run. The hallway was thick with smoke, and something was moving in the stairwell. I gripped the bat and took my chances, sprinting down the fire escape, skipping steps, feet barely touching metal. I burst out into the alley, coughing, eyes stinging, but alive. The street was chaos, car alarms, fires, bodies, and everywhere, the same pull toward the supermarket, people crawling or stumbling or running for the shattered doors. I kept my back to the wall, ducking behind trash cans, trying to be invisible. I thought about Katie, about my mom, about how much I missed stupid things like arguing over cereal brands or watching dumb YouTube videos until 3 a.m. I made it to the edge of the parking lot. That's when I saw him. Trent, the cashier. He was standing in the center of the lot, arms out, head back, mouth open in a silent scream. His shirt was shredded, skin covered in cuts and bite marks, eyes completely gone. But he moved like he knew exactly where I was, turning his head as I crept by, lips moving, whispering something I couldn't hear. I almost called out, but stopped myself. I couldn't save anyone. I kept moving, Ducking between cars, I saw others, some hiding, some too far gone to care. I watched a father push his daughter into a minivan, slamming the door as something smashed against the windows. I heard the kids screaming, begging not to be left behind, but the dad was already running, bleeding from his face, not looking back. I don't know how I made it out of that lot. Maybe I was lucky, maybe nobody saw me, maybe I was invisible, already dead in some way. By the time I reached the highway, my hands were covered in blood, some of it mine, most of it not. I didn't feel like a person anymore. I'd left people behind. I'd lied. I'd watched strangers die, and I knew I would do it again if it meant staying alive. I looked back once, just once, at the supermarket. It was burning, flames shooting from the roof, shadows still moving inside, drawn by something none of us understood. Then I started walking. No plan, no hope, just the road ahead, empty and endless, stretching out into a world I didn't recognize. The old rules were gone. I was someone else now, and whatever I had to do next, I would do it, because in the new world, the only thing that mattered was surviving one more night. The road out of the city felt nothing like freedom. I didn't stop walking, not even when my legs begged. I didn't want to see what followed, if anything. Every car I passed was empty, or worse, blood on the steering wheel, fingerprints smeared across the glass, sometimes shapes hunched in the back seat that I didn't dare look at too closely. The only thing that kept me moving was the same thought looping in my mind. Don't go back, don't turn around. Don't let the supermarket get behind your eyes. Night fell heavy. I cut through a strip mall. Everything shuttered and trashed. It was almost funny how all the stores we thought we needed were hollow now. I heard something scraping behind a dumpster. I froze. It was a raccoon, dragging a half-eaten loaf of Wonder Bread, looking at me like I was the monster. I laughed, but it came out broken. I wanted to tell that stupid animal to stay away from the supermarket too, but I kept moving. At a gas station, I tried the door, locked. I banged on the glass, not caring who heard. A face appeared, wide eyes, wild hair, a woman about my age. She shook her head. "Go away," she mouthed through the glass. I held up empty hands, stepped back. She vanished. I understood. I would have done the same. Hunger twisted my stomach. I scavenged what I could from a vending machine someone had already smashed. Stale chips, a Snickers, a bottle of water half full and warm. I didn't care. I sat behind the station, legs pulled in tight, and let myself cry for the first time since it started. I thought of my mom, my friends. I thought of Katie and the sound of her voice, not the one from the hallway, but the real one. Laughing, snorting soda out her nose in my kitchen on Thanksgiving, I clung to that sound, wishing I could drag it with me into whatever tomorrow was. The sky glowed faint, orange, fire still rising behind me. Somewhere far off, a siren wailed and stopped mid-howl. Something howled back, not human. I shut my eyes and breathed slow, counted heartbeats, tried to pretend I was anywhere else. When I opened my eyes, the world was still broken, but I was still here. That's all I could do, survive the night. That's all any of us could do, now. When morning finally came, I walked north, nowhere to go, just north. I passed a school bus tipped on its side, wheels spinning, a child's backpack lying open in the road. The world felt stuck between what it used to be and whatever it was becoming. Every house I passed, every strip mall, every gas station, I kept expecting to see someone I recognized, to hear my name called, but nobody did. It was like the whole country was holding its breath, waiting for a signal that never came. I realized as I walked that the supermarket wasn't just a place. It was an idea. It was hunger and fear and the hope that you could fix things with one more trip, one more can of soup. Now it was something else, a trap. Maybe it always had been. I kept walking. I wasn't hopeful. I wasn't doomed. I was changed. I knew if I ever saw someone on the road, I'd be wary, careful. I'd help if I could, but only from a distance. I'd never open a door to a familiar voice again. I'd never ignore my gut. The road ahead was empty, but I kept going because that's what you do when there's no other choice. You survive, you keep moving, and you never, ever turn back toward the supermarket.